All right. Today on our Sport Management Association YouTube interview series, we have Dave DeAngelo and Andrea Hall from Ohio State Rec Sports. My name is Joe Mullins.
And I'm Emily.
And then Dave and Andrea, if you guys could kind of introduce yourselves. Andrea, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrea Hall. I am our Assistant Director for Scheduling and Events with the Office of Student Life and Department of Recreational Sports here at Ohio State University.
Cool. And I'm Dave DeAngelo. I'm our Senior Associate Director for Facilities here in the department. We're with the Office of Student Life.
Awesome. So, you guys both graduated from the Ohio State Sport Management Master's Program. Can you guys give us like a short kind of journey of your career so far, like where you've been, what you're doing now?
Sure. Go ahead, Andrea.
So I did my undergrad work at Ohio Wesleyan University, just up the road here from us, and was a student athlete there and thought that I wanted to go into education and coaching. Made a quick change out of the education piece when I realized that it just wasn't a good fit for me and my strengths. So kind of moved over to that sport management side. From there, graduated, went on to Ohio State, interned with the women's basketball program under head coach Beth Burns and that program for a year. From there was a coaching turnover. And there was an opportunity in rec sports. There was a graduate assistant position available. Interestingly enough, I ended up interviewing with Dave for that position. I think that, they were in a spot where they needed somebody. I had no idea what recreational sports was, coming from a small Division III school. So thought, hey, why not? Let's try something different, get an experience here. Who knows where it will lead. And from there, got the position, and timing was right where we were building some new facilities on campus. We were expanding our full-time staff and had a unique opportunity where I kind of, fell into the scheduling manager role back then. And then over the years kind of developed that area from just scheduling with me and one graduate student to me and scheduling and events and 3 full-time staff and a graduate assistant and a handful of students now. So that's kind of been my journey in a quick snippet.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was an undergrad here at Ohio State, and my sophomore year of college, I got a federal work study form in the mail saying I was going to work at Larkins Hall, which was the building that preceded the RPAC. And I was going to make, I think, $3.65 an hour working in the checking IDs and doing that kind of stuff. Nice. So from there, I really, so many of us that are my age, we didn't even know, as Andrea alluded to, that this was even something that you could do for a career, right? I mean, but as I started getting more and more involved throughout the department and officiating and becoming a manager and those kind of things, I said, no, this is something I think I really would be interested in doing. So I ended up getting a grad assistant here at Ohio State and was fortunate enough to get into the sport management program. So I was graduated from the sport management program in 1995 before any of you guys were even born. Well, Andrea was, and had a great experience both in the program as well as my grad assistant role. From there, my first job out of grad school was a position at Northern Kentucky University, just right over the river from Cincinnati, as a facility coordinator. From there, I moved to Oakland University up in Michigan for about 2.5 years as well as a facility assistant director of facilities, and was able to be involved with the construction of a brand new rec center there at Oakland, which was really a career-changing thing for me. And then in 2000, I was fortunate enough to come back here to Ohio State as an assistant director. I oversaw Larkins Hall for those first 5 years. And then transitioned into the RPAC. Since then, I've been fortunate enough to be in the role that I'm in now as a senior associate director. where I am overseeing all of our facilities, indoor and outdoor, with a lot of help from a lot of talented people, and have the greatest job in the world, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool. So obviously you both have a lot of experience under your belt. Can you guys dive into what some of the challenges are that you face in your role?
Mm.
Well, right now we're dealing with some unique ones, right? We are, before this whole virus situation started, our total portfolio of our outdoor space really started to be looked at from a university. So we're losing a lot of our outdoor space to other priorities at the university, and really trying to revamp, redo, remodel some of the outdoor facilities that we're going to be left with, add some space to what we have. So I think what I'm getting at is probably the biggest challenge is the things that really aren't directly in your control, right? I think that probably for any of us becomes things that, you just get frustrated isn't the right word, but it's like, yeah, you just don't have any control over how that happens. Now, we've all been living in that world since March. So feeling like you don't have any control, but I think that's probably, to me, trying to navigate some of those things here at a big university, to me is probably my biggest challenge that I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'll kind of add to that. I mean, I think it's very similar to what Dave was talking about. For me in my area, I think what's trying to balance the magnitude and the high demand of needs for space, with limited facilities and options. And I say that, and a lot of people are going to laugh because we're very blessed with the amount of facilities that we have. But for who we're trying to serve and all the programs and services that we have just within our department, and then also trying to accommodate student organizations, partner and collaborate with other departments on campus, and then you add in what Dave was mentioning about, we're starting to actually lose some space. That becomes quite a challenge, trying to figure out that big picture and where all the puzzle pieces fit. And, and then you add on top of it some of the regulations and the guidelines that are going to come out that are probably going to even further complicate, what that looks like and how we go about tackling it. So.
Well, Joe and I were talking offline before we started. Joe's question to me was, have you guys started to think about what the RPAC is going to look like when the students come back? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we certainly have. And, and that information is changing all the time too. So you get, you get one day it's everybody's got to be 6 feet apart. The next day, everybody's got to be 10 feet apart. So that stuff has been changing all the time, but we feel like we have a really good, solid plan of attack, provided the information doesn't change on us again. So yeah, those are, I think a lot of people are feeling that way, not just about their work, but about their personal life. That so much of that stuff right now is out of their control, and it just is very, it's taxing, right? It's tiring. I'm tired now than I have been in a really long time.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And you guys definitely face a unique set of challenges that I think a lot of people maybe aren't as aware of. But on the flip side, what are some things that you guys enjoy most about your role?
I'll start. I know that I said the challenge is, trying to figure out where all the pieces go. But for me, that's also one of the things that I enjoy about what I'm doing is seeing that big picture and have it all come together, and being able to work with so many different groups on campus, in the community, and being able to serve them and see, somebody come to us with an idea and think, I don't know how we're going to make that work. And then, somehow we work together. We have the conversations. We bring in some other people to help collaborate with us, and it happens. We make it happen. And for me, it's a really cool thing to see and experience. And I think for me too, it's working with the people, working with so many different people, within our department, our colleagues, and then across campus, the different students and organizations, and is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, the people that we get to work with on an everyday basis is just makes coming here a lot of fun. That's one of the things I miss right now, right? There's only a couple of us here, and it's lonely. You're lonely, right? There's not a lot of people around, and I love being around people. I love being around the students. Anytime, you can be in a role where you're able to work with students, to me is immensely gratifying, just to see how they grow and develop over the years. And that's always been one of my favorite parts of this job. And I just love that we're able to provide something that's so important for our university community, right? Like Andrea said, we're very blessed to have the facilities that we have. We've taken care of them really, really well. I think, the RPAC's 15 years old now. People don't believe that when I walk them through it. No, it looks like it's 3 years old or 5 years old, right? So we're very proud of that. But there'll be a lot of nights where, it'll be 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I just happen to be walking up or down the steps, and I'll just stop for a minute and pause on the landing and look out over the cardio canyon, the fitness floor, and you just see every piece of equipment going, and people are coming here to have a good time and to exercise. And it's just really gratifying to know that you can be a part of something that's so important to the student experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could see where that would be not very fun to kind of miss that energy right now. Just having the building empty. Where
it's kind of eerie, right? I mean, I've been kind of splitting my time. Yeah, I mean, it's almost 500,000 square feet, and right now there's our maintenance guys and me in here. So
really following the social distancing rules.
Yeah, that's right. There's nobody around. You can see behind me. I'll show you.
So our next question is kind of thinking back to your time actually in the sport management program. Do you guys have any kind of favorite memories or highlights that kind of stand out from your time? Andrea, I'll let you start first. You were in it a little sooner than Dave.
Yeah, I know. I was, but gosh, it's been a long time. I was thinking about that this morning, and I can't believe how long it's been since I've been in the program and where I'm at right now. But I think for me, the biggest thing is I think back is the friendships and the connections that I made with different people is what stands out. A lot of where I'm at today is because of those people and developing those relationships and having them challenge me to do different and new things and kind of get out of my comfort zone. And so I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing that stands out to me. And then I will say that I love, going to the Clippers game every year and having the auction and being able to reconnect with people and support the program still. Super bummed that that's not happening.
I know.
But yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest thing for me that stands out as far as a memory.
Cool.
I threw out the first pitch at that game a few years ago. You guys before your guys' time, but I did.
Feel like 80 or 90? What was on the clock?
Thankfully, they didn't. They did not. They didn't have the gun out. I agree with Andrea in terms of the relationships, but I think the greatest thing about the sport management program at Ohio State and the times where I've been fortunate enough to talk to the incoming students when we had the ability to see people in person, I say all the time, the best thing about it is the combination of both the outstanding academic experience you're going to get, as well as the opportunities you have to get practical experience, which, to be honest with you guys, there's no other program in the country that offers everything that this program does in terms of what those practical experiences can be. Emily, you were saying you were going to do an internship with the crew. Joe does stuff with athletics. You have the Ohio High School Athletic Association here, which a lot of people are involved with some of their events. And we have several sport management alums that work for the OHSAA. The Special Olympics office of Ohio is here in Columbus. We have the Clippers. We have the Blue Jackets. We have the largest athletic department in the country, one of the largest recreational sports departments in the country. So all that stuff put together makes the experience you can get here, I think, just second to none, right? I always tell a story. When I was in grad school, I was a GA, and we had a weekend event. It was in the wintertime. There was a Special Olympics swim meet going on as well as a wheelchair basketball tournament going on in Old Larkins Hall, and the elevator broke, and we had some people in wheelchairs, and we had some Special Olympics athletes. And in the Old Larkins Hall, there was one elevator, and by the way, there was 4 floors in the building, and the elevator only went to the 3rd floor. There were some unique challenges inherent there, some unique challenges. But, so we're dealing with a lot of at-risk populations that are really starting to panic about the situation. We had people trapped in the elevator. We end up helping some people down the stairs, getting the elevator open, taking care of those Special Olympics athletes that were on there, and so on and so forth. Well, the next day, or Monday after, I was walking into the office, and a guy by the name of Fred Beekman. Now, Fred was our director of rec sports here at Ohio State for a long time, but over 40 years. And that's who the park on West Campus is named after. And Fred says, Double D. I said, hey, what's going on, Fred? He said, I heard you guys had a rough day on Saturday. I said, yeah, well, we figured it all out, though. We got to the bottom of it. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. And Fred said, well, go find that in a textbook somewhere, right? And to me, I tell that story all the time because it's such a, it's such a great example of, not to minimize the academic experience at all, but of how much that that is not going to be in a textbook. That's something you're going to learn from your experiences and whatever you're doing. And that really resonates with me to this day. And that was, 1994 or 95. So it was a long time ago, but I still tell that story all the time because I think it's still very relevant in terms of the advantages you have of being at a big place that has a lot of those other opportunities.
Yeah, no, I'd fully agree with you. From, like you were saying, OHSAA to the pro teams to one of the biggest, the biggest athletic department in the country. There's so many opportunities that you can, if you want to, you can get involved here, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't, it's your own fault, right? Even if you have to do some stuff that you're not getting paid for, I think that is really important, right?
Yep.
While you're in this stage of your life, the most important thing are the experiences that you're going to get. And couple that with your education, it just ends up being a win-win.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that was the biggest bummer about the COVID situation. Like I said, Emily was interning with the crew. We had Big Ten women's gymnastics that we were hosting the week after that everything was all set up. So to miss out on that opportunity is definitely unfortunate, but they are there, if students want them, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also the program does make it really easy for people to get that practical experience, like not even just with providing us with the opportunities, but providing us with the time to be able to do that, which is super cool that they really value.
Well, and they encourage it, right? I mean, they want you guys to do those things, right?
Right. Yeah, so that's super cool. So kind of transitioning back to your guys' careers, what are some of the main highlights of your career thus far?
I'll start. I mean, I think for me, it's been being able to kind of develop my area, going from just myself and a GA and focus solely on scheduling to recognizing that there was, a need to bring in events and have somebody focus on that customer service piece so that those groups were having a great experience and being able to put on a successful event. So kind of building that piece and expanding my staff. And, we've held some really cool events over the years. I think one of the highlights for me and one of the coolest experiences was when Obama came to campus and we hosted him in our special events gym. Being able to intimately work with his team and the Secret Service, and it was intense at times for sure. Super complicated, but it was also just an amazing experience and extremely rewarding to be a part of and make happen. I think one of the other highlights for me too is always seeing my staff develop and then grow and then, take what they learn here with us and go on to do, bigger and better things somewhere else. For me, that's an extremely rewarding experience. So
cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
we also had Joe Biden come. I don't know, maybe
Mm.
a couple years after we had Obama. He was at one of our other facilities, and that another one of my favorite quotes was the Secret Service guy told me, "Dave, difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week." Right? So those guys have an uncanny ability to get some weird stuff done. Remember, Andrea, the one Secret Service guy when Obama came, he said, well, we're going to flick a switch at this certain point in time, and there's nobody's cell phone will work. I'm like, come on, man. He goes, not believe me. They set up in this little closet, and sure enough, boom, everybody's phone was like, no, not working.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really educational and a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate to be involved in the construction of a lot of great facilities. But to Andrea's point, none of it means anything without the people that you have the chance to work with. And to me, that is by far the thing I'm most proud of is the people who I've had the opportunity to work with that have gone off and just done wonderful things in this field of collegiate recreation. And, there'll always be our little family tree in terms of, where they got their start and things like that. But yeah, to me, that's the most gratifying, the most rewarding thing is seeing those folks have the success that they've had. And that list just keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? Whether it be someone that was a student for us or a full-time staff member for us that has gone on to bigger and better things, that makes you really proud.
That's awesome. That's a great lead into our next question. I know you guys talk about loving the aspect of your job where you get to mentor students. And Andrea, you're saying Dave was actually somebody that interviewed when you started. Who was kind of, David mentioned Fred Beekman. So who are some of the people, or I guess the one person that kind of influenced you the most in your career, and how did they kind of do that?
Yeah. So this is, not because he's on the call with us, but actually for me, this is true. I know some people are going to find it hard to believe, but Dave has actually been super influential to me as a professional. He's been the one constant since my start, and he's been a supervisor for me at times and other times not. But regardless of that and the role that he plays with me in the department, he's always somebody that I go to if I have questions, if I am struggling with something, if I need to bounce something off of him, that I'm thinking about, trying to propose or implement or whatnot. He is, he grounds me when I get overwhelmed or stressed, and honestly reminds me of, our purpose and why we do what we do, and is really good at he's really good at staying in tune with that and revolving all of his decisions and his next steps based on that, which for me is huge. And, besides those things, he's highly involved in the profession, locally and nationally. And he's got a network that spans across the country, and is just someone, again, that I value his opinion and how he approaches his work every day. So he's one that, I think has influenced how I approach my work quite a bit.
Cool.
That's really nice of you to say. And we did not talk about that beforehand either.
No. Hey, I'll take my check later.
Yeah, okay.
You can Venmo me.
All right. I know how to do that now. I learned a lot of stuff how to do it. Yeah. Some people don't even know how to write out a check. I hear that. You guys even you guys don't have checks, do you?
My landlord still takes a rent check every month.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I can pay my rent online now too. Thanks. That was very nice, Andrea. I did mention Fred. I mean, really, to me, three people. Fred, definitely, for a lot of reasons that you really learned. If someone looking at the outside would say, well, Fred's just kind of riding out his time and wasn't that involved. But when you needed Fred, he was there for you in whatever situation that you needed him for. Anybody would do anything for that guy, inside of work or outside of work. And he was just somebody that I always have really looked up to. Mike Dunn is another person that was our director after Fred. And, Mike really was responsible for me getting into this field. I mean, I had a real good idea that this is what I wanted to do. But Mike was really the one that pushed me along. And Mike is a legendary figure in our profession, right? There's he was the first person that really understood what student professional development looked like in our field, and embraced it and encouraged it, and really allowed students to do those kind of things. And then another person who's a graduate of the program is a guy by the name of Ken Kaiser, who I worked for as an undergrad and as a grad student. And Kai's had a work ethic that I really learned a lot from him about, in terms of being able to work hard. He really knew his stuff in terms of facility management. So I really learned a lot from him too. Those are three. I could go on for a lot of other people, but those are a handful.
Sure. I've definitely noticed that people around, rec sports, athletics, whatever it is, the, professors in our program, they're experts at what they do, and they're some of the best at what they do, but they're also just really good people who go out of their way to help you out, whether it's like personally, professionally. Definitely noticed that about Ohio State for sure.
Fred, there was nobody at Ohio State that cared more about students at the end of the day than Fred Beekman, right? During his time. I mean, Fred, and we had limited resources back then, right? I mean, our professional staff was like 6 or 7 people. We had a building that certainly was not conducive to, people doing everything they could do from a recreation standpoint. But man, Fred, at the end of the day, and they said that about him at his funeral. They said nobody cared more about students on that campus than Fred Beekman did.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, Fred stopped in the office. I remember when I was first starting. I mean, he was retired, and he could have gone and done anything else, but he stopped in the office every day. He would come by, he would talk to our staff, he would interact with students. It was a passion of his until the end. It was really, really, truly remarkable.
Wow.
And he would just tell you that you were doing stuff, right? He wouldn't necessarily ask you. He said, hey, Double D, this was in 1993. He said, next weekend, you're going to work the state high school track meet. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, here's what I need you to do. Show up at this time. You're going to work on these guys sitting up hurdles and so on and so forth. So I haven't missed a state track meet since 1993. I'm the tournament manager of that now. I don't know for the last 7 or 8 years, but it should be actually happening right now, son of a gun. He would just tell you stuff. He's like, the first time I did Special Olympics, he said, Special Olympics is coming up in 2 weeks. You're going to be a part of this work crew. Okay. I mean, what do you need me to, and it was just, and that's how I got involved in doing the stuff, Joe, with athletics. Fred was really the forefather of that. He worked every Ohio State football game in the press box for 60 years in a row.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
And he was the one that got us all involved. He'd be like, we need somebody to do the play clock. Hey, Double D, why don't you come and help and learn this? And he got us all involved in that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
So kind of on the flip side of that, you guys both touched on how one of the parts of your jobs that you enjoy most is being able to see the development of your team and students. So can you guys describe what kind of mentoring goes on between staff and students in both your roles?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody and how they approach it. I think for me, my interaction with students is fairly limited these days. I'm a little bit more removed than what I used to be. But I think I would still take a similar approach with my mentoring style. And I think it comes from, starting with mutual respect and, learning and listening to the other's perspective and having an understanding of where they're coming from to help you kind of learn and develop that relationship with them. I think it's important to, treat them as and care for them as people, not just an employee, and to help foster kind of that growth and that relationship and the development of the whole person. We have to. We have a professional job responsibility to teach them certain skills, but I think we also have to be real in that we need to do our best to provide them experiences that are going to lead them to, some skills and growth where they're going to be able to transfer that stuff out into the real world once they leave. So making sure that the development of the whole person is what's most important. I think the other thing that I've kind of learned over the years is that for me, it's almost more of like a mentor-mentor relationship and how I approach it, and that I am going to learn. Like if I'm open, I'm going to learn from you as much as hopefully you're going to learn from me. And I think that that creates a thriving environment where you can both develop and grow and be better in the end.
Yeah, similar to Andrea, as I've progressed, my day-to-day contact with students has become less and less, and that's probably been the only bad thing about getting more responsibility within the department. Certainly in the last couple of years I've probably had more one-on-one time with our graduate assistants than I have had in recent years, and that's just really been a product of the people that they were, in terms of seeking out that more of that time. So what I've really tried to do is try to engage in other areas of the university to help me stay connected with students. So I'm the advisor of a student organization called Ohio Staters Incorporated, where we do service projects for the university. This past year, I did our second year transformational experience program. I had a cohort of 15 second year students that I met with every week for an hour and a half. And I had a great time with that program in terms of just helping them navigate their second year. And part of that second year experience is they all can turn in a fellowship for $2,000 for leadership or a study abroad or a creative arts endeavor. And man, I just really loved that. And it made me really understand how much I've missed the day-to-day interaction with our student staff. That tends to go to some of our younger staff. The actual, they're the ones that are doing the meetings with the supervisors and the training of the officials and all those kind of things that you kind of miss as you start to get a little bit more seasoned.
Cool. Yeah, for what it's worth, I know we've definitely heard people in our program kind of mention both you guys by name on how influential that you guys have both been and giving time and things like that to the students. I know they all really appreciate that for sure.
There was a good group. We had a really good group of that group, that second year group that just left, and was fantastic. Yeah,
they were for sure. You guys kind of touched a little bit on this earlier, but why did you choose Ohio State for your master's?
For me, it was opportunity. I think in a couple of different senses. So, I was interning with the women's basketball program actually a year before I entered the program. So there was an opportunity there for me to continue my education. And then I think on the flip side of that, it's, what an amazing opportunity to be a part and go through one of the top programs in the country. And, coming out of that at the end of the program, the opportunities that it's going to present itself to me. So I think for me that was the big why.
Cool.
Yeah. And I was here, right. And I really didn't have any desire to leave. And I had a couple different grad assistant opportunities presented to me. And I was like, I'm not going to, why would I, I'm not going to turn this down. I mean, I loved being at Ohio State. It was an opportunity, for the tuition waiver and a little bit of a stipend and an opportunity to stay and work in a department and university that I loved. I know you hear both sides of the story, right? In terms of, getting your undergrad and your master's from the same institution versus different institutions. And there's definitely pros and cons to both. Certainly in a perfect world, it's great if you have two different degrees from two different institutions. But for me, all the advantages lined up. It was too easy for me to just say, all right, let's do it. Plus, as I alluded to earlier, you got so many advantages of being in this program from a practical experience perspective.
Yeah, Emily and I both did our undergrads at Ohio State as well, so
yeah.
we're in the same boat.
No, and there's, like I said, pros and cons to both arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard to leave though once you're at Ohio State.
I know.
So what would your advice be for incoming grad students, and specifically how can they initially get involved with rec sports?
I think they need to, my advice, general advice to them is take advantage of any opportunity that you have to be involved with anything that you think could help you further your career at all. Whether that be, like I said, volunteering to be a timer at a swim meet or whatever it is, however small or things that you think it is, that it is, take advantage of it. As far as getting in touch with us, they just need to reach out. I mean, even if they don't have an official role with us, we've had several times over the years where we've had sport management students that have been like, well, I really want to get an experience. Can you guys help me? And whether it be through one of your classes or a practicum or whatever it is, all of us are willing to help. We have several alums that work on full-time staff in rec sports, and all of us have great affinity for the program and would really do anything we could to help one of the students if they wanted any experience at all to collegiate rec.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that. I mean, I was going to say you got to make connections. A theme throughout a lot of Dave and I's responses so far has been, the people. And you can't be afraid to network and meet new people and have conversations and ask questions so that you can learn about all the different opportunities that are out there.
Well, we've all said it at some point in time. It's been about a moment in time and an opportunity where, some things may not have happened if it wasn't for, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a movie called it with John Cusack, Serendipitous, right? It was, type of occurrence. When I was coming out of grad school in 1995, there was no internet. There was no way to see what jobs were available, right? You went to the NERSA conference and you got a packet that was this thick with the job descriptions, and you had to write out a little note and said, I'm interested in this job, and somebody might choose to interview you or whatever. But Mike Dunn, who I mentioned earlier, he calls me frantically. He said that the job I told you at Northern Kentucky University, it wasn't listed in the giant packet because they had missed the deadline, but he had this facility job available, and Mike wanted me to introduce me to the director at Northern Kentucky before he left to go home. We were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Steve Meyer, who's the director at NKU, met with me in the lobby of the Holiday Inn. I gave him my resume, and I was just lucky. Mike had run into Steve in the expo hall on the last day of the conference, and Steve said, I missed the deadline, but do you have anybody you think would be good for this job? And I got the perfect guy, and the rest is history. Who knows what would have happened in my career if I wouldn't have got that initial break. So all that stuff is super, super important.
Yeah. All about the Holiday Inn.
Yeah. I think it was Holiday, but I know we were in Albuquerque.
Right state, right hotel.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned NERSA, Dave. I know there's a lot of organizations, whether it's facility related or meeting related. What are some of the organizations in your guys' field specifically that you would recommend students kind of look into getting involved with?
Well, NERSA, in terms of collegiate rec, is the number one thing we would recommend. And Andrea alluded to earlier, we have ORSA, which is the Ohio Recreational Sports Association. And man, Andrea, how many students do we usually bring to that every year?
Oof, lots.
Yeah, lots, right? And that's a great opportunity for, if you don't know, even if you're not sure this is what you want to go into, it's a low cost thing. It's a drivable thing. You can really get a feel for the profession. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's a good first step to, like Dave said, kind of get a feel for what the conversations are that we're having, what our operations look like, and to really, again, start that network process and have the conversations with people to just explore, right? See if it's something that might be of interest to you, that you may not have been exposed to before.
And the other thing that does, there's regional conferences too. Our regional conference is more student focused. It happens in the winter. We always encourage people to try to go to something like that before you go to a NERSA annual conference, where there might be 2,500 people, and you're going to get overwhelmed really quickly. So even if you only know a couple or handful of people and you have an idea for how things work, to us, that's always been really sound advice, that before you dive headfirst into a NERSA, make sure that you have maybe some smaller ones under your belt. And NERSA has all kind of specialty institutes now. There's stuff for sport clubs and facilities and intramurals and fitness and aquatics. And there's other conferences that I've been to. Club industry is a big show in terms of folks that might be interested in fitness equipment. Athletic business is a good show. You might subscribe to the magazine or get the magazine in the mail, but they have a conference usually around Thanksgiving time. That's a really good conference as well. But those things are really important, and I've always been a big advocate you need to get to those type of things to further your education.
Cool.
Yeah, it's definitely important to get your feet wet in different areas. So I know both of you also kind of touched on this, but how have you both been able to get involved with the greater University and Columbus community outside of rec sports?
I feel really, really blessed. And I think that, it's one of the reasons why I think I ultimately made the decision to move from athletics over to the rec side, in that it allowed for some of these opportunities to take place and get these experiences outside of the profession and my day-to-day job. And, I've been lucky enough to volunteer and work with Special Olympics Ohio in the summer games. In my time here at the department, I've worked state tournaments for Ohio High School Athletic Association. I've been fortunate enough to be able to coach on the side at the collegiate level and the high school level. I have worked the women's basketball scores table, and staying involved in that athletic side of things a little bit and getting that kind of nugget back into my life. But yeah, just a lot of different things, but it goes back to, those are all through connections and the relationships that I've been able to build over the years that allowed me to kind of, get those opportunities. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
It would be really easy to come to work each day, 8 to 5 or whatever it is, and, do your job and not take advantage of all the other opportunities. You guys, we were at the biggest, most vast university in the world, right? There are so many opportunities here to be involved in whatever you want to be involved in, even if you are full-time staff, right? Advise a student organization, volunteer to be on a committee. We have staff that are involved in all different aspects of different things that happen at the university and outside the university too. I do some of the same things that Andrea does with OHSA and Special Olympics and the athletic department and things like that. Teach a class if you have an opportunity to teach a class. If you're not taking advantage of those opportunities, then you're not taking full advantage of being a staff member at Ohio State. And to me, I've always encouraged our staff to do those kind of things because I think they're really important for people to have a much broader vision of what this great place is all about.
Dave didn't mention this, but he's got one of the coolest jobs at Ohio Stadium on football game Sundays. You want to talk about that, Dave?
Well, we do work the booth at the Ohio State football games too, and that can be a little stressful at times. But there's 5 of us in there running the clocks, the play clock, the game clock, and the scoreboard, and and helping spot and keep track of things. And our PA announcer sits right above us, Big Bob Kennedy. If you hear his bellowing voice, we like to give him a hard time during the course of the game too. But it is a lot of fun, just very anxious to get back there hopefully in a couple months.
The Penn State game when the scoreboard went out, I remember Dave sprinting down the hallway to our command center, and I ran into him in the hallway like, my radio's not working.
Listen, and Dave doesn't sprint, so that's it's serious. Then
he ran that time.
Penner will tell this story, and you should get him on here if you haven't had him already.
He'll be one.
Yeah, okay. Well, he'll tell the story when the power went out. I can't remember what game it was. It was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and Penner and I were talking in Dr. Pastori's class that like the next week after this whole situation happened, that we lost all power in the whole press box right when the band started to come out before the game. So no, similar to what happened, no PA, but this was for like a half an hour, right? And we were counting everybody down on the radio and queuing everybody up in different ways. And he'll remember that story a lot better than I do. But I remember it was he and I on the radio just talking everybody through how we were going to get to kickoff. And we did.
Wow. All that matters. The ball gets kicked. Kind of turning to our current situation, one of the reasons we kind of came up with this idea for this YouTube series is a lot of the internships that students in our program were going to do got canceled or postponed or whatever it was due to the COVID-19 virus. What kind of advice would you guys give students that are coming out of school right now and going into a job market that's not so friendly to them?
Yeah, I think it's hard.
Question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because it's tough because Dave and I have positions right now, and we're still struggling and being challenged and trying to figure out a way to work through it. And so, we're still learning, and so to be able to provide advice to somebody, I mean, I think is really hard. But I think some of the same things apply, and I think it's one. Just you've got to recognize that this is a temporary situation.
Right.
This is not forever, and so that's good news. And two, you have to be adaptable right now. Things are changing. How we do things is changing, and we have to not only be okay with embracing the change, but we've got to, evolve, and we have to, again, just be flexible, because if we don't evolve, you're going to be irrelevant. And, I think that's going to be huge. So having that understanding and that flexibility, when you do have an opportunity, to know that, who knows what's going to be thrown your way and what you might have to figure out is key. And I also think that another big thing right now is to stay connected with people. You can't just hide away, right, and just wait it out. You've got to stay engaged with your network and expand your network and have those conversations so that when things do start to change, then, people are going to you, right? They're remembering that, oh yeah, I had this conversation with someone. I know that they're still looking, and I know that, these are some of their strengths or whatever it might be. So staying connected with people, I think is really key right now.
Yeah, I agree. This is unprecedented,
sure.
Right? I mean, in terms of, everybody has a hiring freeze, and we even had one of our GAs that went all the way through the process and has a tentative offer, but the offer is not going to come to fruition unless the hiring freeze comes off, right? So, there's so many unknowns. And to Andrea's point, it is temporary, but and also keep this in mind. Commencement was just a month ago, right? So even in normal times, I would tell our folks, not everybody's going to have something right off the bat. I get that right off the bat might be pushed back a little bit more, but at the same time, things are trending in the right direction, and I hope that within the next few months, some things start to ease up and we can see some relief in terms of hiring freezes. So I don't have a great answer for you except just stay the course, and know that this too shall pass.
It's good advice. It's definitely good advice. I know I've been trying to just keep up with my network, just keep talking to people,
That's right.
stay connected,
Yep.
like Andrea said.
Yeah, meeting and keeping those relationships. So also kind of on the topic of today's current events, what role do you see the field of recreational sports playing in furthering the conversation and making positive changes when it comes to race inequality?
Yeah, that's heavy. I think being a part of the conversation, listening, learning, and again, kind of going back to that, evolving. Where do we need to evaluate some of our processes or procedures and offerings, and make sure that we are being inclusive and and I think doing what we do best in that offering and providing a safe space for students and faculty and staff, to gather, to hold events with all sorts of different people, and come together and learn and grow from each other. Like I said, in a safe space, right? I think that's where you start.
I've always thought that sports was a great unifier of people, right? And not that everything that we do is about sport, but a lot of it is, right? So for us to be able to just, the things that have happened recently could not have happened at a more inopportune time, right? When everybody is already dealing with one major crisis in their life, and then now all of a sudden we have two parallel things happening. So for us, I think just an ability for us to get back to business and be able to offer some of those opportunities will be very, very helpful for the Ohio State University community. And, like I said, I've always felt like those type of things are things that unify people to begin with.
Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like rec sports in particular has it's one of the places on campus where people from all kinds of different walks of life kind of get together regularly. So I definitely think it plays an important role in that.
A first-year student from wherever in the world can be running on a treadmill next to a dean of a college, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's there's a lot of cool things that could happen within our spaces.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Within 6 feet, of course, now, but yeah.
Not within, yeah, away from 6 feet.
Yeah, right.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. We have a few final questions. They're kind of more of the fun variety, less serious, less thinking. Dave, I think this first question is definitely aimed at you. What's your favorite food in Columbus?
Well, that's a great question. So you guys know what my answer is going to be. Vladi Yanakievsky, who is an old kicker at Ohio State, owned a place called Easy Living Deli that I would probably literally eat there. I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week, Andrea?
At least.
Yeah. And unfortunately, he just has a catering operation now. But still, to this day, the special from Vladi's and a side of macaroni salad and his cookie, by far my favorite. Yeah, my favorite.
Best cookie I've ever had. I don't even like cookies, and you can't not get one. They're so good. So good.
He's the best, and I miss that place. And we can still get food from there, and it's catering only. But I just miss the comfortability, I guess, of that place. Right? It was like my Cheers. Right? I mean, you pretty much knew everybody in there. You always knew you could go in there and probably sit next to somebody and have a conversation. And you're supporting a small family-owned business, and it was. I miss it a lot every day.
Cool. How about you, Andrea?
Oh, sorry.
For me, I'm going to go with DK Diner.
Okay.
They have got really, really good food as far as they have one of my favorite breakfasts. But they have great options throughout the day, and I think that their donuts are delicious as well. So
good donuts, no doubt. Yep.
yeah.
Who is your favorite hero? Or not your favorite, who is your hero?
You mean like superhero or
like anything?
I think for me it's Springsteen. And I've seen him in concert more times than I care to admit. But Bruce has always had just a way of being there when people need him. I think he really is the epitome of the American dream and the guy that people turn to in times of need. He just had a nice thing on his radio station the other day where he had a 2-hour session where he played some songs and also talked about everything that's going on right now. So for me, it'd probably be Bruce.
Cool.
I think for me, it's probably Ellen DeGeneres. I think she's an amazing humanitarian. She, is not afraid to tackle the difficult conversations and do it with compassion and coming from a place of curiosity, but then somehow always mixes in a little bit of humor to kind of lighten the mood and put everybody at ease. I just think it's a remarkable, characteristic that you just don't see very often in people. And the work that she does for me is really, really, really great to see.
She's awesome.
That's awesome. Who was your favorite sports team growing up? College, pro, high school, whatever?
Well, and they're still the same today, right? I mean, I've been fans of the teams I've been fans of since I was as young as I can remember. Of course, the Buckeyes. When I was 7 years old, my uncle took me to my first Ohio State game, and I got to meet Woody Hayes. And
awesome.
Woody told me to come to school at Ohio State, and I said, "Yes, sir." I've always been a big Steeler fan, Pirate fan. I grew up in Youngstown, which is about halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So in those days, it was really hard not to be a Steeler fan. So Steelers and Pirates. And, of course, Civic Pride took over when the Blue Jackets came to town, and that's been just so awesome to have them here.
Sure.
Yeah, for me, I think, growing up, I remember Saturdays in the neighborhood, we'd have block parties where we're, doing watch parties for the Ohio State football games. And so, Ohio State football was a big one for me all growing up. And then I'm a basketball person. So, Duke was huge for me to watch as I was growing up. And then as far as professional sports, it was the Bulls. Michael Jordan was my guy. And, I'm not huge into the professional scene anymore. It's just not my cup of tea. But those were the ones for me growing up.
Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
Okay.
The Jordan show was the
no
Jordan
hesitation.
Documentary was really good. It was really
it was incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah. My grandpa went to Ohio State, and he always tells me the story about how he by accident met Woody Hayes one time. Wow. I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard.
I was a 7-year-old
awesome.
kid, and it was like, looking up at whatever. And that was obviously toward the end of Woody's tenure.
Right.
It was 1977, I think, and
his
thing ended in 1979.
That's still awesome.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, what is your all-time favorite sports memory, whether it be Ohio State or otherwise?
God, there's so many. I was in the shot the day that Matt Sylvester hit that three-pointer. I still say that was I'm getting goosebumps even now thinking about it. That was probably one of the ones in person because I was so close. I was sitting at the scorer's table, and he hit that three-pointer to beat Illinois, who was undefeated up until that point in Thad's first year. That was just unbelievable. Obviously, Coach Tressel, if you ever talk to Coach Tressel, he will complain about us leaving 1 second on the clock at the very end of the 2002 Ohio State-Michigan game where, we were going to go to the national championship game. And he even sent me a note about it as recently as about 6 months ago. He has never forgotten the fact that we left 1 second on the clock that day. But that game, I was in tears after that game. I was so happy because number one, I love Coach Tress, but number two, we had finally gotten over that hump of having somebody that understood what the Michigan game was all about. And, it was an unbelievable moment.
Cool.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple that stand out. One is just a few years back, my high school team won the state championship while we were hosting it in the shoe.
Yep.
And we in Rec Sports were actually hosting the championship zones for the teams that win after the game. So to have kind of my two worlds come back together and collide again was a pretty cool thing for me to experience. And then another one for me was my coaching with a local high school team, and seeing one of our players just in complete flow, and someone who you would not expect it from, but she was unstoppable that game. Tied the all-time 3-point record in a single game, broke the all-time scoring record in a game. And so I just think, you come to expect in those things of the collegiate and the professional athletes, but to see an amateur athlete in that moment was, and to be a part of that as her coach was just a really, really cool feeling for me, and something really awesome to experience. So
that's awesome. I love that perspective. That's cool.
Yeah.
Kind of our last question. If you had to describe Ohio State in 3 words, what would they be?
People, diversity, and energy.
People was definitely one of mine. I could do the easy, the athletic one, people, tradition, and excellence. But tradition is certainly one that I think is so important here. And I'll say, is world renowned one word, or is it 2 words or hyphenated? Okay.
Hyphenated. We'll go with one.
Yeah. Eminent. How about eminent?
Another good. That's a good word too.
Yeah.
I would agree with all of those. Cool. Well, that's all we have. But thank you so much for taking time out of both of your days to talk to us and give us your advice and your perspectives. I think it'll be super helpful, not only for us, but also for the incoming students and the students that are considering Ohio State as their master's degree program.
My pleasure. Anything we can do to help.
Yep, absolutely. Ditto.